Hey, how's it going, guys? In this tutorial, we'll learn how to build a SQL query application in Excel. Alright, so I'll be using Microsoft SQL Server as the backend database system, since that's the database that I know the most. You can use any database system such as MySQL or Oracle, as long as the database system supports ODBC Connection Manager. So right here is going to be the application we're going to build in this exercise. And this is actually a tool I built back in the day when I was working at Wells Fargo, when I had to work with multiple servers and databases, and I need something to easily retrieve SQL Server datasets in Excel from multiple places. So let me demonstrate some of the features that are built in this application. Alright, so on the left hand side, we have this query window. We can basically insert our SQL statement. So I'm going to insert a SQL query that I already wrote, and I can click on Run. And when I click on Run, it's going to put the result set from my SQL Server database. And it's going to create a new worksheet in Excel. Then it's going to paste the result set. And here I can choose a different database. But now if I select a different database, it's going to clear the query on the query editor window. But what I can do here is I can double click on one of the table from the list. Now let's say I want to retrieve the records from my task table. I can double click on the database, actually not database, I can double click on the table, and it's going to automatically insert the select all statement. Then I can use the shortcut Alt-R to execute the SQL query. And clear is going to clear the query, and close is going to close the application. And to launch the application, I can use the shortcut Ctrl-Shift-X to put the application back on. Right, so that's almost everything that I need to share. Oh, and one more thing. Right, so if we look at the AdventureWorks 2019 database. So in this database, I have actually quite many tables. So unfortunately, in VBA, we don't have the mouse scroll option or feature built-in. So I created this simple scroll buttons that I can use that to simulate the mouse scrolling simulation. So it's going to help me to quickly navigate the tables from my tables list. On the top, this one is still work in progress. I don't know if I'm going to implement this function which allows you to connect to multiple servers. But I guess if I get enough requests to implement this feature which allows you to connect to multiple servers, then I'll think about if I can put some time on the side to create the video. Oh, and here I have this save query function which I'll implement this feature in a separate video. But for now, I just want to cover the basic in this video. Alright, so let me pull out my exercise file. And you can download this exercise file from the link in the description below. Now go to the Developer tab and click on Visual Basic to open the VBA window. Inside this exercise file, there's only this user form template. And if we right click and view code, you'll notice that there's nothing written in this template. And that means that we have to write everything ourselves. Alright, so let me zoom in the font first. And since I'm using a 4K monitor, the maximum font size I can increase is only 12. Alright, so let's look at the user form first. Alright, so from the form, currently we only have, here let me display the property window. Alright, so from the form, we have the text box, 3 push buttons, and this drop down menu is disabled. And here we have another drop down to select a database. And based on the database that you select, it's going to list the tables that are created in the database that you select. Alright, so let's see, how should we do this? I'm going to click on the form and press F7 to go into the code editor. Alright, so I guess I need to keep doing this. Alright, so on the top, I want to create two private variables. So on the top, I want to create two variables. The first variable is going to be the configuration worksheet. Alright, so if I go into my Excel workbook, so here I create a worksheet called configuration. On the top, in cell C1, I have this name range created. And in this cell is where we're going to insert the server address. Alright, so let me get the server address. And we can get the server address by using the select at server name SQL statement. Oh, actually this should be server name. Now I'm going to assign the server name to the server name cell range. So this is going to be referencing the configuration worksheet. So I'm going to type dim.ws configuration as worksheet. Next, I want to create a variable to store the server address. Alright, so let's start with something really easy. We're going to double click on the close push button. And when we click on the push button, we're going to close the application. And the command is going to be unload me. Me is going to be referencing the user form. And the next one is going to be the clear button. And this one's going to be me. And here I want to reference the text box. And to clear everything, I can simply assign an empty string to the value. So there's one more thing I forgot to do. From the menus, click on Tools, References. And here make sure that you enable the Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects library. And based on the Excel version that you're using, the version number might be different for you. Mine is going to be 6.1. Alright, so here I have a SQL statement. And let me run the SQL statement. Alright, so if I run this SQL query, it's going to return all the databases in my SQL Server. And here I have a where clause, which is to exclude the databases that I don't want to show on my application. And these are just the system databases. So these 5 databases are what I consider user databases. I'm going to copy this SQL query. And here I want to create a subroutine. And I'll name the subroutine populate user databases. Alright, so let me paste the SQL query. I'll declare my connection string variable first, and the SQL query variable. And I'll name the variable SQL user databases, a string. Then I want to create my connection object. And it's going to be dim conn as ADODB. And why it's not showing up? Oh, so it looks like I forgot to activate the library's reference. Now let me try again. Dim conn as ADODB.connection. Then I'm going to declare my record set object, and it's going to be dim rst as ADODB.recordset. Now I want to create my user database SQL query. Alright, so this is going to be this SQL statement. And to get the server address from the configuration worksheet, so here we need to create the WS configuration object. And it's going to be this workbook.worksheets, giving the worksheet name. Then I can grab the server name, and it's going to be coming from the configuration worksheet range. Then we can reference the name range name .value. Here I want to create a stopping point. Right, so this should be x sub. I want to name this as cleanup. Oh, and this should go here. So basically everything after the cleanup is going to be garbage collection. And we're going to empty out all the objects that we use. And to simplify the connection string creation, here I'm going to insert a new module. I'll name the module MS SQL Server. Inside the MS SQL Server module, I'm going to create a function. And I'll name the function build connection string. And here, let me see if I can increase the font size. Right, so I guess not. Alright, so from the function, I'm going to have 4 parameters. The first one is going to be the server name, database name, and username, and password. And because you can authenticate your account while using a username and password, so we're going to make username and password optional. And here I'm going to simply copy paste the function string. Right, so if we look at the VBA code, so basically the first line is going to be specifying the driver type, and it's going to be SQL Server. If you're using Oracle, MySQL, or MariaDB, then the driver might be different. Next, we're specifying the server address, database name. And here we have an if statement to check if a username and passwords are provided. They want to add those 2 properties to the connection string. And here I'm also going to create the subroutine to display the application or the user form. And I'll call this open T-SQL form. And it's going to be form T-SQL.show. And because I want to be able to modify the cells or the worksheet's contents while the application is still opening, I'm going to set the model to VB modulus. I'm done with the MS SQL Server module. I'm going to close the window. Right, so going back to the popular user databases subroutine. Here I'm going to construct my connection string. And I'll insert the build connection string function. I'm going to provide my server name and for the database name, because I want to list out all the databases in my SQL Server or in my database system. So I need to set this to master. And since I use window authentication, I don't need to provide my username and password. Now I'm going to connect to my SQL Server database system. So it's going to be connecting to database system. I want to create my connection object first. And here I want to type where connection. I want to connect to my database system, giving the connection string. And I want to set the cursor location to AD user client. So this code here allows me to connect to my database system, but I still need to run the SQL statement to return the tables. And to do that, I need to create a new record set object. And here I'm going to say with RST. I want to execute the this SQL user database SQL query database connection, and this is going to be coming from the connection object. Here, let me set this to AD open for, and for the log type, I'll set this to AD log optimistic. And for the cursor location, this is going to be AD user client. So let me check if I have any typo by going to tools. Actually, not tools, debug, compile. I'm not getting any error message, so that's saying that everything looks pretty good so far. So in VBA, we need to move the cursor to the first row by using the rst.moveFirst method. Now I can add the tables list to my this database list dropdown. And the dropdown is going to be .cbo underscore database list .add item. I want to set the first item as empty string. Then I'm going to insert a do until loop. And my condition is going to be rst.end of line EOF. Now we can iterate each item from the rst object, which is going to be the query connection. And this will be add item. And we can reference the database name by referencing the rst object .fields. Now if we look at the result set, my database name is going to be under this name column. So we're going to insert the column name .value. Then we'll move on to the next item. Alright, so once we add all the items to the dropdown, I want to set the default to the first database on the list. So I'll set the list index is equals to 1. Alright, so let's take a look. So if I press F5, and here, oh, okay, so I know why. Because I haven't assigned this subroutine to any function yet. Alright, so let's do it right now. So from the first dropdown, I want to select user form. And for the event, I want to choose initialize event. So this event is going to fire when we launch the user form. And when we initialize the user form, I want to call the populate user databases subroutine. Alright, so let me press F5 to launch the form. And here, let's see. Oh. Operations not allowed when the object is open. Let me take a look. Right, so I'll put a break right here. Okay, so I guess I know why. So the cursor location needs to go on the top. Okay, so here we go. Now if I click on the database dropdown, so here are the 5 databases. And to make sure that the application is going to be displayed on the same monitor as the Excel file, I like to set the top value as the same value as the application itself. Same thing with the left value. Alright, so for the cleanup, so every time when we finish running the query, we need to make sure that we close the connections. So here I want to check if the record set is nothing, then we can do nothing, because we can assume that the record set connection does not exist. Otherwise, I want to check the record set state is not equals to 0. Then I know the connection is active. And this should be rst.close. And set rst to nothing. And I'll do the same thing to the connection object. So we're almost done with the populate user database subroutine. Alright, so if I open my user form, it's going to select the first database as a default. And when we select the database, we should expect that all the tables in this database is going to be populated. Right, so that means we need to create another subroutine to perform the table displaying operation. So to display all the tables of a database, so we need to figure out the SQL query first. And we can reference the system.schemas table. And I'll do an inner join here. And I'll join the system.tables table. And we can combine the table by referencing the schema ID column. If I run this SQL query, and it's going to give me all these columns. And the only thing I need is the schema name and the table name. And I want to insert a condition where t.tables table. I only want to return user table. Oh, and this should be type description. And one more thing, I want to sort the tables by the schema name column first, followed by the table name. Oh, so this should be ordered by. Alright, so I'm going to copy the SQL query. And here I'm going to create a subroutine. And I'll name the subroutine refresh tables. So here I'm going to declare my variables. And it's going to be the SQL statement. Let's name this as SQL tables. And the connection objects. Record set object. And the connection string. Plus the database name. I want to move this to here. I also want to create a helper variable aside. Alright, so let's create the SQL query. Now here I want to reference the user form. So every time I want to update the tables list from the list box, I want to check if the database list combo box is not empty. Right, so if the value is equals to empty string, then I want to clear the list box. Then X out the subroutine. Otherwise, I want to return the database name. And here, let's create the connection string. So for the parameter value, I'm going to provide the server name and the database name. Right, so here I have a typo. Oh, this should be build connection string. Alright, so here I'm going to create the connections and record set object. So when you're building an application, you need to think about the behaviors and the consequence, how one action is going to cause. So here I want to clear the SQL query editor when I refresh the tables. And since the database can return with a 0 table, so what we can do here is we can insert an if statement. If the record count is equals to 0, then I can go to cleanup. I'll simply grab the code block from the public users databases subroutine, and I'll just copy and paste. Otherwise, we can go ahead and insert the items. And we need to move the cursor to the first row. And because we're working with a list box, so we need to actually track the row number that we're inserting the items. Actually, let me rename the variable to row index. Now within the list table, list box, and which is going to be this interface right here. I want to set the column width, so I'm using a 4K monitor. So you might need to manually set the width value. And for mine, it's going to be 75, semicolon 60. And we need to clear the items before we inserting the new ones. Alright, so again, here I'm going to insert a do until loop. And the condition is going to be rst.eof. So for list box, we want to specify the method, and it's going to be add item. Then we're going to assign the item, giving the column and the row index, and this will be row number. First column is going to be the schema name. And let me take a look at the SQL query. And the second column is going to be the table name. Then we can move on to the next row. Alright, so that's going to be everything that we need to write for the refresh tables subroutine. Now I'm going to copy the refresh tables subroutine's name and want to assign that to the popular users tables, actually not table, databases subroutine. And I'll put that right here. Alright, so let's take a look. And this should be row index. And this should be schema name. Okay, so let me try again. Alright, so here we have the database name populated along with the tables in this VentureWorks database. And I noticed that my schema name is not displaying all the way to the end. Alright, so let me expand the column width. Let's do 95. Alright, so 95 looks pretty good. Now, if I select a different database, I should expect that my tables is going to get updated. And to do that, so here, let's go back to the feedback window. From the top, I want to select CBA database list control. And here I want to call the refresh tables subroutine. So what we're saying that here is every time when I choose a new item from the database list dropdown, I want to update my tables list. So now if I select a different database, it's going to update the tables list. Now the next function I want to implement is when I double click on one of the tables, I want to auto-populate the select all SQL statement. So here, let's find the list box. I'm going to double click. Oh, it's not working. Here we go. Alright, so I want to reference the double click event of the list tables control. And let's put this subroutine or the event to the top. Right, so when we insert the SQL statement, we want to insert the schema along with the table name. So I'm going to declare the schema string and the table name string. Oops, this should be name, followed by the database name. So from the user form and from the list box, I want to check if a value is select. If not, then we can X out the sub. Otherwise, I want to grab the schema value and it's going to be from that list. And we can get the current select index by using the list index method. And it's going to be the first column. And for the table name, actually this should be 0, not 1. So table name is going to be coming from the second column. Now we can create the SQL statement. Alright, so I guess we don't need the database name variable. Now let's name this as SQL statement. Actually, I'll name this as SQL. Alright, so this is going to be select everything from. Want to insert the schema name, period, and the table name. And the SQL statement is going to go into the text editor. We want to empty out everything first. Then we can insert the SQL statement. Alright, so I don't like the variable name. Let's name this as SQL statement. Oh. Now, if we look at the SQL statement, I don't like to have everything in a single line. I like to have my SQL statement formatted properly. And to fix the formatting, so here I can simply cut off the string where I want to insert a new line. Now the SQL statement looks much better. Alright, so almost done with the application. Just two more functions left to implement. One is the execute SQL statement function, and the other one is going to be the tables navigation function. Alright, so let's do the table navigation function first. So I'm going to click on the control and double click. Alright, so by default it's going to try to implement the change event. So I'm actually going to separate the event into two different operations. One is the spin down event, and the other one is going to be the spin up event. So when we are working with the navigation control, we need to grab the index first, and I'll name the variable current index as long. I also want to have the option to control how many items I want to skip. And I'll call the variable skip by n as long. And the last item we need to have to make the operation to work correctly is the max index. Now I want to skip 5 items at a time. So I'll set the skip by n variable is equals to 5. And the max index is going to be the table count basically. And the tables is going to be coming from list tables, list box, dot list count. Right, so actually I can put this here. And because there's only one operation that we're performing, which is to skip the items. So that means I can simply ignore any error that occurs. So I'm going to use the on-air resume next statement to ignore the errors. Alright, so here I need to figure out the select index. And it's going to equals to dot list index. Then I want to use the select method to skip 5 items. And this will be application dot worksheet count. So I want to use one of the Excel function. But here I want to check which one is the minimum value between max index -1 and oops, this should be here, and the current index plus the skip by n value is equals to true. Oh, so here I forgot the closing parenthesis, so we should have 2 here. Now I'm going to copy this code block to the spin subroutine. So the logic is going to be very similar, except that here we don't need to know the max index. And the only thing that is different is here we want to check the max value between 0 or the query index minus skip by n. Alright, so let's do a test run. Let me fix the code real quick. Alright, so if I click on the navigate down button, it's going to skip every 5 tables. Alright, so the last item we're going to, the last function we're going to implement into the application is the execute this run push button function. And let me fix the label. Now double click on the run button. So inside the command run _ click event, we're going to insert the SQL statement, database name, connection string, and the SQL statement to send the tables. Right, so here let's name this as row index. And it should be long. Then we're going to declare the connection string object. And the record set object. And finally, this is going to be the worksheet. We're going to insert the result set. Alright, so for the SQL statement, and it's going to be coming from the text editor. And for this subroutine, I actually want to insert a handler. For the error, I want to print the error message. Then go to clean up. Alright, so here let's grab the database name. And to make sure that the SQL statement is not an empty string or a database name is actually provided. So this will be check SQL query is not empty and database name is provided. So we can use the lim function and I want to trim the SQL statement. So if the value is equals to 0, or if the database name is equals to 0, so basically I'm checking the character count. Then I want to X out the subroutine. I want to construct the connection string. And this will be server name and database name. Alright, so again, I can simply copy the code block from one of the main subroutine to create the connection and record set object. But here I need to update the SQL statement. Alright, so one more thing. I want to grab the code block from the cleanup statement. And I'll put it right here inside the cleanup. Alright, so this will be inserting the result set. So I want to check if the record set state is not equals to 0. And 0 means nothing is returned or the connection is unavailable. So I want to insert a new worksheet first. Right, so inside the worksheet, I want to move the worksheet to the first tab. And this will be before she's count. Actually, let's do, since this will be 1. So before the first tab. Then I'm going to insert the record set or the result set from the SQL query. And I want to insert the table to cell A2. And it's going to be .range, .copy from record set. Then I'm going to insert the record set object that holds the data. Then I'm going to insert the field name. And this should be, here I want to go back to the top. So here I made a mistake. this should be column index. So I can say for column index is equals to 0 to record set.fields.count. And we know the index starts from 0, so we need to subtract 1. So in Excel, not VBA, in Excel, the index starts from 1. So we need to increase the column index by 1. The value is equals to record set.fields, giving the column index name. So if the if statement condition is not met, then I simply want to print a message. I want to display a message unable to retrieve records. Then I want to, actually that should be fine. Yeah, because in theory, this condition should never happen. But I'm just putting it there just in case. And that's it. Alright, so let me save the Excel file. And we have officially finished the application. Now let me just do a test run. Alright, so here I'm going to simply double click to populate the select statement. And I'll click on run to, oh, okay, so here, oh, this should be column index. Right, so here I want to go to view, then go to macros. So before we create the open T-SQL form macro, and I want to assign a shortcut to this macro to allow me to quickly launch the application. And I'll assign the shortcut key Ctrl+Shift+X. And if I run the shortcut, it's going to display the application. Now let me do a test run. So let's say I want to return the record set from person.address table. So here's the result set from the SQL statement. Now if I choose a different table, actually not table, choose a different database. And I want to retrieve my table from the test table. And this time I'm going to use the shortcut Alt-R. And that's going to return a single column with 2 values. And clear is going to delete the SQL statement. And one last test. So here I have a join statement from the human resources.employee table with the left join to the person.business entity table. Now if I run the SQL statement, I should return 10 records, but with this many columns. I'm going to copy the SQL statement. Now go back to the application. I can simply copy and paste, analyze. And here I'm getting the message invalid object name human resource.employee. And that's because my current database is set to the JJ database. I need to change this to AdventureWorks 2019 database. Now let me copy and paste the SQL statement and run it. And that will return the result set that is identical to this result set. Alright, so this is going to be everything I'm going to share in this video. And hopefully you guys found this video useful. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.